Mike Frenkel grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Anybody from Brooklyn? He lived in New Rochelle for 34 years prior to moving to Boca Raton full-time 7 years ago, where he served on the board of directors of the Boca Raton Synagogue. He's an attorney. Mike has had a varied career, including working on the Hill in Washington, D.C., and many years in the corporate world. He got his start in the Borscht Belt in the 50s, and he doesn't look like he would be that old to have done that. But that's where he was. He was first hired as a waiter and a basketball player, and then wound up doing stand-up comedy. So let's hear it from Mike. Mike, please come up.
Are you having fun? Well, A.B. Schwartz also was having fun. He was 85 years old, and he bought himself a fire engine red convertible. And he was driving down 95 without a care in the world, doing 60, 70, 80, 90, and suddenly he heard, looked through the rearview mirror, and there was a state trooper. Says a Chubman board, the hell with him. And he proceeds to do 95, 100, 105, 110, 115, and suddenly he says to himself, what am I, crazy? She says, this is crazy. He's still behind me. And he pulls over. Officer Muldoon comes out of his car livid. His face is red. He says, you old coot, you. He says, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy driving like this? I ought to take you and put you in jail and throw the key away. But you know, it's 5 minutes to 5 on Friday. I get off in 5 minutes for the weekend. Tell you what I'm going to do. If you can come up with a reason that you were speeding that I have never heard before, I'll let you off. He says, well, officer, I'll tell you, it's like this. 30 years ago, my wife ran away with a state trooper. And I thought you were bringing her back? How many of you remember Bill Walton? Great basketball player for UCLA and then the NBA. And then he became an announcer for NBC and ESPN. But how many of you know that he had a speech impediment, a real bad one, when he entered UCLA? And the only thing that helped him was a bunch of speech pathologists who worked with him every single day. And of course, eventually, he even became an announcer. Well, not everyone is that fortunate. And little Joey has a bad speech impediment, and he's looking for a job. And he finally gets an interview with the president of a Bible company. And the president ushers him in the office and says, young man, what can I do for you? He says, well, sir, I want to sell Bibles. He says, what, are you out of your mind? You want to sell Bibles? Suddenly his lawyer is sitting in the back. He says, Joe, relax. You can't do this. You don't want a lawsuit. He says, give him 3 Bibles. Tell him he's got 5 days to sell them. If he can, you're fine. And if he can't, you're off the hook. He says, okay. Gives him 3 Bibles, sells them. Gives him 10 Bibles, sells them. Gives him 20 Bibles, sells them. He's amazed, absolutely amazed. Make a long story short, at the end of the year, he's being honored as the Salesman of the Year. And at the dinner, he's called up to receive his plaque. And the president looks at him and he says, Joey, you are fantastic. You're great. What a salesman. But tell me, what's your secret? How did you do it? See, I ring the doorbell, and then I say to the lady, would you like to buy a Bible, or should I read it to you? One of my old favorites. Morris and Becky live in Queens, and Becky is complaining. She says, Morris, I can't stand the chickens I get from the market. They're all so skinny, what I need is a fat chicken so we could have a good dinner. She says, so what do you want for my life? I want you to go to Hunts Point Market in the Bronx, and I want you to buy a live chicken. What, are you crazy? No, get a live chicken. So, like a good Jewish husband, he goes up to Hunts Point, and he buys a live chicken. He comes home with the chicken in the bag, puts his hand in his pocket, doesn't have his keys. Rings the doorbell, no answer. Bangs on the door, no answer. Looks around, looks through a little glass opening in the door, and sees a note on the table. Went to visit my sister, be back at 7 o'clock. Looks at his watch. He's got about 3 hours. What is he going to do? And as he's sitting there on the stoop looking around, he sees the movie theater. I'll go to the movies. They're not going to let me in with a chicken. So he takes the chicken, puts it in his pants, closes his jacket, and walks into the theater. Well, a minute after he sits down, the button's open and there comes the chicken's head out. 2 women are sitting next to him. One says to the other one, Sadie, you got to see what's coming out of his pants. She says, don't bother me, I'm watching the movies. Sadie, you got to see what's coming out of his pants. I told you, don't bother me. I'm watching the movie. Sadie, please take a look. Listen, you've seen one, you've seen them all. She says, yeah, but this one's eating my popcorn. 1948, Israel's War of Independence. And Moshe and Sadie live on a 4th floor walk-up, and every once in a while an Egyptian bomber comes in over the Mediterranean, and the sirens go off. And as they do, Sadie turns to Morris and she says, Morris, she says, let's go down to the basement for the air raid. He says, I can't. She says, what do you mean you can't? I can't find my teeth. When I find my teeth, I'll be right down. She says, all right, I'll start, you come over. She gets down 1 floor and a bomb explodes 3 blocks away. The building shakes like crazy. She yells out, Morris, Morris, hurry up, hurry up. When I find my teeth, I'll be right down. She goes down another flight. This time a bomb explodes a block away. The building shakes, the door swings open. She says, Morris, Morris, hurry up, the bombs. I told you when I find my teeth, I'll be right down. She gets down to the 1st level. This bomb explodes right outside the door. The door comes flying down. The debris is all over. She's looking up as the white chalk is all over her. And she says, Morris, Morris, the bombs, hurry up. When I find my teeth, I'll be right down. She looks up, she says, for crying out loud, what do you think they're dropping, sandwiches? You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you very much.